Hello, my name is Jim Putman, and I'm the senior pastor here at Real Life Ministries. And welcome to the City on a Hill Information Podcast. And let me introduce who I have here with me today. We have the clinical director and the executive director of this new partnership that Real Life Ministries is having with a brand new mental health clinic. This is Mike Wraith, and Mike is the executive director. And Mike, at one time, just recently, you just changed jobs. You were working for the state of Idaho, overseeing the mental health department. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, division
for the state of Idaho, in particular the North Idaho region. And so he has been a part of our church for a long time, and is even an elder at our church. And he's the executive director. Joe Mitrovich, Dr. Joe Mitrovich, is a psychologist, and he started coming to our church and got involved in us planning for a real need in our community, the mental health crisis, what to do about it. And he actually worked at the VA hospital, working with vets, and then he also worked with Multicare, helping them create the mental health department for the cancer departments in Multicare. Did I get that right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And so we have partnered most recently to start this mental health clinic, but let me give you sort of a story about how we got here. First of all, personally, my wife attempted suicide when she was 17. And so dealing with that has always put like a special place in my heart. That happened before I met her. Having kids who struggle with some mental health stuff, personally struggling at times in my life with mental health stuff, this has always been something I've been aware of. One of the things that we knew here at Real Life is that we've had a mental crisis with teens in particular. We've been working with these schools for years on if there's a suicide, our youth team, our folks would go to the school. They would call us on site. The kids would be there that would need counseling, teachers, all those things. So we've cared about this for a long time. About 5 years ago, we had another suicide, and that led to, okay, what is really going on here? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How many? And we had the principal at Coeur d'Alene committed suicide, or death by suicide, and so it just became very apparent. And so we actually started working with Lakeland School District we created a docuseries to help create material for their health classes, interviewing families that had dealt with this and reading letters, suicide notes on what kids actually believed that caused it. What are the top 5 lies, so to speak, that they were believing? And so we created this docuseries called Irreplaceable. You can go to our website or YouTube and get that. And the school district opened up the whole school district to us and let us speak in the assemblies and let us work with the teachers and create the material, which is completely unheard of to have a church partner with a school district. And that led us to go, okay, now we got church youth groups around the country. How do we do another one for church youth groups? And then as we went into that, we started to investigate what were the real problems, what was happening, what was causing this crisis, why in North Idaho? And that led us to start meeting. That's how we really became familiar with Mike Wraith, who was working for the state. We started meeting with all of the agencies.
Yeah.
What's the problem? Why is this happening? Why is there a mental crisis, not just in North Idaho and not just with teens, but with adults? And so as we investigated that, we started to go, okay, well, we partnered with other problems with the police or the jails, or is there something we're supposed to do in a partnership here to help be a part of the solution? Not just identify that there's a problem, but is there something we're supposed to do about it? We actually started a mental health initiative 5 years ago, where we were going to start being open and honest about our own struggles. We were going to try to destigmatize this in our church. So me sharing my issues, my kids, our staff, talking about how counseling is good. You need counseling to try to, I don't know why people freak out about the mental health issues when when there's often a chemical issue, but when it comes to diabetes, that's no problem. So we just have worked really hard to do that. Work with our staff, our youth ministries, trying to do that. We've been doing that for 5 years, but then as we got involved with partnerships in the community, we started to identify problems, and then we started to work towards solutions. So let me just start with understanding the crisis as a whole. So Joe, why don't you share with us what's actually going on from a big picture that would create this crisis in America, but in particular here in North Idaho?
So I think one factor is technology. It's provided an avenue for online bullying. It's provided an avenue for social comparisons through social media that leads to a lot of anxiety and depression for individuals. At the same time, I think that the breakdown in the family structure that's so pervasive is another contributing factor. You see rises in substance use and all of these things coming together to produce kind of an across-the-board rise in anxiety and depression. Recent statistics showed that over 30% of Idaho adults endorsed clinically significant symptoms for anxiety and depression. But speaking of the crisis, one part of that, and I know Mike will talk more in a moment about this, but is the suicide rates. In the early 2000s, it was 16.5 out of 100,000 in the state of Idaho. Today, as of 2022, that number jumped to over 22%, which equates to about a 34% rise in the suicide rates in the state of Idaho, which consistently ranks in the top 5.
In the United States.
In the United States, yeah. And so in addition to those issues, clearly a hot topic these days is the identity confusion that is so pervasive. Again, if you just a quick glance at the statistics, early 2000s, you had a roughly 1.5% of teenagers, kids and teenagers endorsing transgender issues, whereas today that number's jumped to 3.8. So it's more than doubled. So there's just a lot of mental health issues across the board that are going on, and then that's further complicated when you get into, okay, well, how do we address these? And you have all 44 counties in the state of Idaho being designated as mental health care deserts, which means more specifically that in this area, the providers available were only able to meet 25% of the need. So as this mental health issues are going up, there's nowhere near the amount of care that is needed to meet the need. And so that, is in a nutshell a lot of what's going on as far as the problem.
There's also the financial difficulty, right? So even if you can't afford it, how long can you afford it? If you have insurance, it designates a certain amount of appointments you can have. Well, when the families are breaking down, the society's kind of going crazy, they don't deal with stuff until we're at crisis level, right? Because the family's not set up to deal with it. There's not a lot of proactive stuff going on. It builds up until there's a crisis. Now you got 8 sessions, and then you couldn't afford it beyond that if you had insurance at all. And so the amount of health care available, if you get it, is not enough to take care of the issue. Would I be saying that right, Mike?
Yeah, that's right. And what ends up happening is then you've got a lack of access, or when someone is in a crisis, so let's talk about a youth in crisis, how do they access the help they need when they need it? I think Idaho has made a lot of strides over the years working for the department. I've worked for it for 18 years, and there have been a lot of an increase of resources, but we're still lacking. We still have some serious gaps. Typically, if someone's in crisis, they need immediate help. And so what ends up happening you send your youth, or maybe it's an adult, they end up flooding the hospitals. They end up in the emergency room because that's really the only option that's available to them. We do have crisis centers in every single region of Idaho, but in North Idaho, we only have crisis centers for adults. And so where does a youth go when they're in crisis other than the hospital? And the problem with the hospital, I mean, there's some great resources at the hospital. We have we have some staff who go to our church who work there, and they do their best. But that program or that setup is really only to help people get through the crisis from one day to the next. It's not building skills. There's no proactive skill building that helps those youth or those adults in crisis carry on those skills long term. And so that's the typical go-to when someone needs help right away. And it leads to just a cycle. So then when they're in crisis again, they're back in the hospital. And then there's a cost part of that as well. I mean, going to the emergency room is not cheap. And so how do you create a system where youth, adults can get access, that they're in a longer term outpatient treatment where actually that treatment helps them build skills, gets them home, they can practice those skills, and they're not escalating to the point where they have to go to the only option, which is, hospital or inpatient options, which just really isn't the long-term solution.
I think it was you, Joe, that you were telling me that because we have so few resources, I guess, that people are having to send their kids to Montana or other places to get any sort of help at all.
Yeah. When we first moved here in 2020, my wife was a pediatric triage nurse for multi-care and was frequently the one fielding those calls and would work with the physicians to try and connect the family, the individual, with healthcare in this behavioral healthcare in this area. Often that meant a call over to Kootenai because it was not in Spokane area. And sometimes they had room, but many times, as you say, it was having to send kids out of state, which really almost creates another trauma, right? Yeah. You're dealing with stress, and now all of a sudden you're sent out of state, you're separated from your family. Your family, which needs to be a part of the solution, isn't there. There's a whole host of issues. And if I can go back to something that Mike was saying for just a moment, because I think it's really important, that system that you were describing, I think one of the things that's often not understood is that when somebody is in crisis, they need help, they want that care, and they go to the hospital thinking, okay, this is the answer, I'm gonna feel better now. But they're, as Mike very appropriately pointed out, it doesn't have what they're really needing. It's more about stabilization. They leave maybe a little bit more stable, not feeling a whole lot different, and it reinforces this underlying lie that I think the enemy loves to use, and that is, there's no help for me. I'm broken beyond repair.
I'm isolated.
This is it. This is all there is right here.
And so it's actually over time, that depression or whatever it is that they may be dealing with, we tend to see it get worse, not better. And then to Mike's point, they end up, it's this revolving door.
Well, and
at
because
the crisis center.
we have a real shortage of psychologists and psychiatrists in our area, huge.
Yeah.
So then that puts it on the plate of general docs to figure out what to do.
Yep. Yeah, totally right. Primary care providers are wonderful and are doing the best that they can, but it's just not a part of their training. But they've become the de facto mental health system. And so you see a lot of misdiagnosis. The one I probably see the most is children being labeled with ADHD because a primary care physician is not set up to do testing for a learning disability or more extensive deep dive into how depression and anxiety may be creating those symptoms that are presenting as ADHD. So now they leave and they're on a medication that they don't need and they're not getting the help that they do need. And again, primary care providers are trying their best.
What would we even have?
Yeah,
right.
But it's just, that's not what they went to school for.
Right.
And so, there's certainly a shortage.
Let's talk about this for a second. You actually came and trained our staff and on, okay, how do we deal with potential suicide. What do we do when we get the call at night?
Yeah.
And we noticed that, okay, from a church side, we wanted to be more proactive and help families create cultures that dealt with mental health crisis, dealt with it when it was small, didn't stigmatize it. Let's talk about it. Let's be in community so you have real relationships instead of, playing video games, which, it takes away from real connection, all these things. So we're trying to be proactive. And we're trying as a church to care for people as best we can. As pastors, we're equipped to do spiritual counseling, but there's mental health crisis that we weren't trained in. We're trying to the best we can to deal with, okay, is this a spiritual issue? Is this a medical issue?
Right.
You can't just pray away. God can heal anything, but, God can heal cancer too, but we still have a cancer doctor, right? So when we would say, okay, what do we do with this family who's in trouble? Well, we're gonna recommend them to a counselor, and we tried to narrow down the counselors. We would vet them and go, these are what we call Christian counselors who have evidence-based and spiritual-based health. That's a much smaller number, but in general, there was 6 months, a year and a half wait to get these people in.
Yeah.
So then what we've tried to do is go, okay, well, how do we handle this? Well, we have Grief Share, we have, Regen, which is a recovery program, or Celebrate Recovery. We've got, marriage counseling. We've got all these things that we're trying to help people deal with stuff. But there comes a level at which we're tapped out. What do we do with them? And there's enough of them that the amount of time it would take us to work with the whole family, because it's usually a family systems problem. There's usually not just one person. It's a marriage. It's kids. It's a whole. We're limited. We're not trained in all of that stuff. Try to get to you guys, and there's a list.
There's a list.
Okay, so now what do? We can send them to the hospital. So explain, why? First of all, let me ask this question: why do counselors struggle to get involved at that level of crisis? I mean, I get it. They're already filled up. There's a waiting list. So if there's a crisis, how do they fit that person in?
Right.
But counselors tend to be a little bit reluctant to work with kids.
Yeah.
In general, why?
Well, there's a lot that goes with that. I mean, even just in crisis, again, and I think we've got some really talented counselors that go to our church who understand crisis and crisis risk management. But there's even a lot of outpatient crisis or outpatient counselors who are just not comfortable with dealing with the acute, I'm suicidal, what do I do in this moment? So that's not really their experience. So often it's like, call 911, go to your nearest ER. And there's a lot more we can do in the outpatient setting. So some of it is training, some of it is equipping, and making sure that counselors feel comfortable enough in knowing how to manage a crisis when they're faced with it. But also just taking on kids in our culture nowadays has created so many more complexities. I mean, you're talking about a culture now that wants to separate the family. And so you've got counselors who are getting sued because they're actually promoting the family. They're wanting to bring in parents into the therapeutic process. And, the culture, or even some of the states out there, they're saying, no, you need to celebrate the individual. You need to celebrate that one child.
Celebrate or affirm whatever brokenness they have.
Exactly. And so when a counselor's not doing it in some of those states, they actually get in trouble. And so there's a lot of hesitancy.
Well, let's just put the point. Yeah. Idaho just passed a law that parents can be involved up until 18. It's 14 across there. They can't even tell the parents what's going on. And as a counselor, how do you help a kid when the family system's involved and you can't tell the parents?
Exactly. Well, and then it's also understanding the importance of the family. That's not being trained out in the schools nowadays. You're not lifting up the family system. Again, you're focusing on the individual and promoting that individual's rights. And so that's why it's so important to build in a system where we integrate what we know to be truth, biblical truth, into evidence-based practices. There are a few agencies in our area that are doing that now, but they're flooded. They're bombarded because families are craving that kind of support, and they're doing their best. But like you mentioned earlier, there's a 6 to 12 month wait for those counselors. So the need is to create a system where we not only have that kind of supportive treatment model where we're celebrating families, people can feel safe to come, we can help the kid that they're bringing in, but also bring the parents into that therapeutic process. But we also need to increase access. We need to be able to allow where people can come and get the help they need when they need it, and it's not back to the emergency room.
You know, let's talk about some of what we've been partnering. I mean, we've been on this journey trying to figure out the problem. What's the animal we're hunting, and then how do we hunt it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm a hunter, so I use that metaphor in my mind. What's the problem? Problem is our culture is producing more and more mental health crisis by the way it's living. So part of the answer is training something proactively different in the family of God that promotes family relationship, walking God. There's a part of people that you can give them a medication that helps them endure the pain, but unless you get to the root of some of the pain, you're just dealing with the symptoms and not the problem, which is based in knowing God and having deep relationships with others, which their lifestyle is, not protecting or promoting. So there's a lot of this on the proactive side that we want to do as a church. We think if we did a better job with family and in relationship and calling people to a different way of living, there'll be less mental crisis. So there's a proactive side that we want to do. On the reactive side, we know that we have to partner together to come up with a way of dealing with this that is good for a counselor, healthy for a counselor. To be a counselor, that's a professional counselor, that's an art. That's an education process. There's a student loan debt, right, to understand. That's one of those fields where you do need to go to college for. There is a medical side of all this. And so how do they make a living without putting their family in crisis? How can there be boundaries for them? Because you guys could get, just like a pastor, we could be called every hour of every day. The need is so overwhelming. So how do you have a life? How do you share the care so that not everybody's carrying everything, but somebody's carrying something? How do we work together proactively and reactively? So we have kind of come up with a method that I think works. The problem is, when you think about a counseling center, the way it's normally funded is by sessions. Okay, so the way you make a living as a counselor is if you have so many hours, and by the way, because of the laws, whatever hour you have to do paperwork, or there's no insurance. You have to, so it's not just like, hey, 8 hours a day I can do counseling,
You have to document.
You have to document it. You have to, there's a whole bunch that you have to do just to be able to charge clients legally and get insurance legally. So people don't understand that. And even like you fill a counselor up, even if you could 40 hours a week with counseling, that's a mentally hard place to be dealing with issues 40 hours a week. So how do you have healthy counselors that actually make a living? At the same time, and how does that happen? Well, they have to work a certain amount of hours to make a living. So you're already filled up. Now a crisis happens. Well, what do you do with that crisis? You have a waiting list. You can't just leave a bunch of sessions open because you don't get paid for a crisis that you don't know when it's going to happen. So how do you come up with a methodology to fund it? How do you have counselors make a living, have healthy lives? How do you have availability, affordability? Because again, a lot of these people who don't, and a lot of people don't have insurance for this, They can't afford the amount of money it takes for you to make a living to pay your bills. So how do you be able to help the people that don't have money? Because they need help. Some people are like, they go, well, why do I need to help somebody who doesn't have their own money? Well, one person who doesn't get help because they don't have their own money, it's not just their problem. It takes one unhelped person to mess up an entire community on a day. One person loses it. They can go in with their crisis and completely shut down a school and a community in one day. We've seen that. This week, a mental health crisis in New York City or wherever. I mean, so again, what do we do? And so our sort of methodology was, let's create a clinic where, yes, we take insurance, we're accredited, qualified. Yes, we have some people that what they do is they fill in sessions, and so there's money that comes in through the sessions that they fill, whether through insurance. But we have some who their job is not to just do counseling sessions. Their job is to have available space for crisis when it happens. And you guys are training people at the church to do a better job in their groups of leading. So take our recovery group folks. Let's help them learn mental health skills. Let's help our pastors learn mental health skills so that we up our game. Yeah, there'll always be a limit that we can go, but a lot of times our limit is because we aren't trained. Well, who's going to train us?
Yeah.
Right? Now, great thing about this when you were working for the state, they actually freed you up by paying your salary to come over here and work with us.
Yeah.
Right? So that we could up our game.
Yeah.
But
there was a limit to that. That could only
limit.
come so many times. And there's a need, as you're mentioning, to expand our team. So it's not just not one outpatient clinic, but we're actually using the community, qualified enough people who have enough of a skill set where we can enhance their skills, give them more skills in mental health, understanding how do you triage and know I can handle this at my level versus, you know what, that's a higher level. I need to send them over to this outpatient clinic. But having them understand and see what's a crisis, how do I manage that? How do I manage this person in front of me? I can walk alongside them versus I'm going to send them on to a clinic like ours sitting on the hill, and creating this expanded team that increases access to help.
So let's talk about what that would look like.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have people available to train our staff, other churches' staffs.
Yep.
Right? Because right now our pastors will go, well, I'm in, but they may not be qualified, they don't know. Or I don't do that, so your only option is a counselor. So to train these churches, the pastors, but not only the pastors, to work with the group leaders in a church so that they up their game, they can handle more. So it's not just, nothing, go to a counselor, which there's a waiting list for 6 months. Or there's training mental health coaches, volunteers who work on, first of all, we have people that can help you before the crisis. Okay, once you've had the crisis and it's 8 sessions or however many sessions, and now I can send you for continuum of care, we call it. I can send you to somebody that's trained to help you from here to help you build lifestyle, right? When it's 8 sessions and they're in crisis, we don't go, well, I only have 8 sessions, but they don't have insurance. We have to create a fund, a way of helping to bridge the gap between what a counselor has to get paid to make a living, and we can bridge that gap between what they can afford to pay and what we're able. So we have to bridge that gap. We can expand the continuum of care. We can create more people that can do more work together. So it's not just another clinic that's filled up because you only have this many spots. Now, if we opened up and we did it the normal way, you guys would be filled up in 2 weeks And that's just a drop in the bucket. It's not addressing the community-wide problem.
We're not addressing the overall issue of access.
You got a school counselor who doesn't know what to do. To be able to consult, they call and go, what do we do with a situation like this, without giving details because of the laws, the HIPAA laws. What do I do when I see this? As a psychologist, learning and teaching people to be able to test, or you're able to test what's the real problem here. Not just give them medication, but what's the real problem?
Yeah, I think that is a really big part of it, is understanding the root issue. And not only understanding, but being able to engage with individuals and have a conversation where it resonates with them, it makes sense, yes, that is, and then you can tie that in with the answer. And I think one of the unique things about City on a Hill, and Mike was right, there are some wonderful clinicians in the area who are also believers, but not many. And that is a really important piece. There's been a number of studies that have shown that when you have a mismatch, if you have a secular clinician and somebody whose faith is really important to them, we know that you have premature dropout rates and that it is not as effective. There's other studies that have kind of shown that it is more effective when you pair them, right? There was actually a large paper that was recently written that reviewed over 30 studies that all showed that when you have the integration of the two, good treatment, good evidence-based treatment that is also faith-based, that you see more improvement across the board, but also more quickly. And so that's a big part of the answer, is getting that accurate assessment, getting the right treatment.
Well, and then not only that, but we all know this, whatever skills that you're teaching them, cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever, it's like neuroplasticity is you have to relearn new patterns. Your brain can change based on new ways of thinking and acting. Well, okay, how does that happen? The support you get from people outside of that counseling, being able to share it, other people that are doing it with you. I mean, we know this, every study, whether it's Weight Watchers or AA or whatever, when you get involved with accountability and relationship, your numbers go up. Okay, so you put together proactively as a church, we partner, we do, you guys help us be proactive. What are best practices for dealing with kids when they're young or whatever? We combine the biblical, the psychologicals, right? We're proactive, helping these kids learn skills that help them process their feelings. The mental health, we're aware of it. They're teaching people to think better and behave better in relationship proactively. When there's a crisis, we have a place, we've raised our ability in-house to deal with some of those crises. It's a super crisis. We have a group that's ready to help them, that believes the same thing, right, but can deal with the crisis issue, then funnels them back into a relationship where they get help and support, right? And now there's this sort of connection. And one of our big goals is we want to try something that hasn't been done really, because not a lot of churches are thinking that way, and a lot of counselor centers are not open to that. We want to try something here together to work out the bugs, that we can help churches and Christian counselors around the country to form partnerships in other areas.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll bump through this, and God's brought us people here. So this isn't just a North Idaho, Spokane, Washington thing.
Well, I think that's the neat thing about helping to develop that vision and that continuum of care. Not only that can it be something that's developed, can be rolled out elsewhere, but as you were saying, as everybody is elevated, I like to use the term force multiplier, right? It's like Mike and I alone, maybe we see 16 patients a day between the two of us if we were full time. But if we're partnering with real life and we're helping to elevate the understanding of mental health issues, we're helping to equip with those skills, now you have a whole host of individuals over here. We're able to have a much broader reach. And also,
instead of 16, It could be 100.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, as we roll this out, we're open to work with other churches too, as they get a vision for this, right? They have people in their churches that could be trained to up their game. They may never become a professional counselor. That's not everybody's calling.
Yeah.
Well, it's also kind of like, if you think of it in terms of when someone comes to say to a pastor and they're getting advice or they're getting some spiritual growth feedback from that pastor is like a one and done sort of session. You're talking to them, okay, that's great. But, I've found that if that person's then linked with some kind of a mentor who can walk alongside them and do life with them and carry that on, that's even more impactful. And that's kind of like what we're talking about here. They come and they deal with their immediate crisis issues at, say, City on a Hill. And there's 8 to 12 sessions that they have with us. But then we can carry them on to someone who can mentor them along, whether it's a mental health coach, a lay counselor from real life, someone who can walk alongside them. And I think you'll see even more effective outcomes in the skills they built in their initial counseling. They can be handed off to a mental health coach, and that person can walk alongside them. You're going to see someone who's able to become more independent, manage their symptoms more successfully. It's just a really exciting model that I think we can put in place.
Go
ahead.
I just think another way of, I think you're spot on, and another way of saying that is it's breaking down the silos. It's, as a believer, first and foremost, who's a psychologist, one of my pet peeves for a long time has been, why do we keep these two things so separated? And I really appreciate about real life that long ago recognized that we shouldn't be doing that. We need to bring these two pieces together, the spiritual component, the mental health component, and be working together. When we're doing that, I have no doubt that we will have not only a much greater reach, but a greater impact.
Great outcomes. Yeah.
Well, I think about this, we've been working on this for, 5 years, and Santha Yinger, who's one of our staff members, has been working on our side since the Irreplaceable series. She's been working on our side, gathering people. I know that's how you were working with Santha to create, sort of destigmatize this, even across the board. Talking about our problems instead of hiding them until they blow, right? We've been working on all that. She's been helping us. Now we're working into this partnership of, all right, what's our side of the street? What's your side of the street? How do we put it together? And this is a journey we're on, and we're committed to that. The way I know that the Lord wants us to do something like this is a couple of things. First of all, it's been something we've been praying about. When God brings this quality of people to help us dive into this issue, this is something we need to pay attention to. And both of you left secular jobs to step out in faith in ways that are I'm just so humbled by you two. Willingness to step out in faith and walk away from security and all the other things you would get from your guys' roles to help us do this. But also, we had another person give some money so that we could get started. God just made it very clear we're supposed to get started. We're going to be trying to roll this out in October. We're already working through. We've got our 501c3. We got a building. We're starting to hire. You guys are starting the hiring process. So all that's going on right now. October, we're hoping to be able to start opening up. We have the money for this stage of the game to get us rolling, but this is going to cost us, this model, to year one, if we have 3 counselors and then office manager who does that sort of assessing and does all that and all the legal parts of this, and then guys who are partly doing sessions with folks but training and do all that, it's going to cost us about $900,000 a year. But remember, we get money coming back in from sessions we're doing, so it's going to be around between $400,000 and $500,000 for year one if we have 3 counselors. So if we go to 6 counselors, it'll be more, but we'll also be bringing in more, because some people, that's what they'll be doing, counseling, and so there's some income, but it's not enough income for what we have planned. So what we're doing is we're asking people to go, okay, are you in to help us create something new in our area? I think this is a real problem. God's helping us put together a real solution. but it's going to take us coming up with a way of paying for this outside of doing sessions and even charging people full amount, because a lot of people don't have insurance, but they need the help, right? We think everybody should pay something, but not everybody needs to pay the same amount. So we have a philosophy of doing this. So we need people to give, and some people have already given, and so we want you to consider doing that. We want to eventually, I mean, we got to get it rolling and pay for year one, then year two will be growth. But again, if more money comes in, we'll accelerate faster. It'll grow faster.
That's right. Yeah.
But year one, 900,000, I think year two, it's 1.1, not million. Again, money's coming in, so it's not all being funded. But we're around between 500,000, 400 to 500,000 year one, 700,000 year two. Our long-term goal is to create a foundation where we've got money going into an account and we work off the interest every year. So it's funded. It's perpetually funded. So we want to get it rolling with donations, but at some point have enough donations go in that this is self-funding, and we're designating this much money a year to this kind of work. And so we're working on that. So here's what you need to do. What you're going to see is you're going to see this video. We're pointing people from our Align event and from our church to this video to kind of give you a picture of what we're doing. It'll go to our website, to our app at Real Life Ministries, which will then point you to the website for City on a Hill. And if you would like to meet with our founders and ask some questions, we have a prospectus that we put together, and we're trying to be willing to answer all of your financial questions, your counseling questions. And so our team is really doing that right now, meeting with people, raising funds, putting all the pieces together, all the legal parts of this, the partnership with the church, and then expansion of partnership to other organizations. And that's all happening right now. So if you want more information, we want you to go to our website. We want you to email us so that we can have a meeting with you. And whether it's me at the church side, Santa Yinger on the church side, whether it's Joe or Mike, we want to invite you into something I think could be vitally important for our area. We know it will be. We think God's in it, and we think it's bigger than that. And the church's purpose is to shepherd, care for one another, but to shepherd our community, to take we were saved from hell for good works which God planned for us to do, to mobilize as a team, to represent Jesus together with our gifts and resources and abilities, to meet people where they're at so that they can maybe change their view of who Jesus is through us, and we can meet them in their need and then lead them to the true solution, Jesus the Christ. And we all believe that together.
We do.
Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion of this video?
I'm just very humbled to have this opportunity to serve, and I'm very humbled to be partnered with Real Life. All the support that we've received from Real Life. I'm very blessed to be working with Joe. He's a great partner in this with me. And we just thank you for all those of you who have already given. Thank you so much. Yes, we're hoping to raise more, and that's really just to increase our team. We want to expand our team, expand the access we can have for care in our community, and take that model outside of our community. That's another hope for us. Take this statewide, take this nationwide. So that's our plan, and we want God's in the center of this, and we don't want to get ahead of Him, and so we're in His hands, and we feel really good about that. So.
Joe, what would you like to kind of close out with?
Yeah, first of all, I would echo what Mike said. It's really been incredible. We've been at this for about a month and a half, but it's just so evident. There are a few things in my life that I've been a part of where it's as evident that God is working very powerfully and very intentionally in how he's brought this all together to Mike and I having a wonderful time doing this together. He's a great partner, real life, incredible partner to have. I guess the other thing that I would just say is bringing this to some very just real terms. As I think about why I went into this profession, my prayer all through graduate school and after has been, that Jesus would use me as an instrument of his healing love. I believe he is the ultimate healer. And when I think about the families, the individuals that are hurting, because in very practical terms, what we're talking about here is there are parents who are going to bed at night wondering if their child will be there in the morning, truly, who are struggling with suicide. There are children who are at a developmental age where it is imperative that their parent is there as a stable figure to nurture them, to bring them along, to grow them, but that parent is struggling to do so, impacting that kid's future potentially for a very long time. And so when I think about as believers, I think our call is to stand in the gap, to help bridge that, whether it be through volunteering, working at City on Hill, working at Real Life, or making it financially feasible for this partnership to stand in the gap and to meet those needs, to change people's lives, to change trajectories of the future. So it's very exciting to me. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. And really, really excited about the future.
Well, here's how, let me just close with this. In my house, as a pastor, dealing with my own stuff and my family stuff and trying very, very best to raise my kids to know the Lord. There were parts of what I was dealing with that I didn't understand, the medical side of it. Back, for us, it was like rub some dirt on it when we were growing up and, I'll give you something to cry about. And I didn't understand the mental health side of it until I was later and I had to deal with it in my own life and the life of my family. We say this in our home, it's Jesus and Mark Cornelius that brought my family to where it is. He was our counselor. He's a part of our board here. He's a dear friend, and my kids will tell you that man, that Christian counselor, and by the way, much of it we couldn't afford to pay for it, and yet he stepped into the gap and blessed my family, and we want to create a sort of atmosphere of authenticity, support, encouragement. Those are all biblical things. And we have the capability of doing it. We just have to say, okay, we're in. And, I think everybody I know right now has some kid or grandkid or, husband or wife dealing with a lot of this and often alone. Think something's wrong with them, or they don't want to tell anybody, or they want to keep it hidden, or there isn't enough help if they were willing to do it. And we just want to step into the best of our ability. We know we're not going to be able to take care of everything, and we're going to make our mistakes and all that, but doggone it, are we in the game in our slice of history to, for Jesus' sake, meet people where they're at and help them become healthy spiritually. That's the game. That's what we're in. And so many of you've already been in the game. You help kids go to church camp. You help children's ministry. Some of you are working in small groups. You're giving so we can feed the poor. You're in leading groups, or you're in recovery, and those are all things we do together that have made a difference in people's lives. This is another thing that we can do together, and I think God's leading us to it. Thank you for watching this video. Again, go to the website. It'll be there on the screen for you to go to it. We'd like to be able to contact you. We are expecting that we're probably going to get blitzed by emails, so give us a little bit to catch up with it. So if we don't immediately get right back to you, we'll do it as soon as we can. based on the volume as we unleash this in the community, all right, unveil this. So God bless you. Thank you for your help and your support, for watching, caring, and participating in one way or another. In learning to be a better friend and spiritual counselor, mentor. Some of you will do that. Some of you are going to go, I need counseling right now. Great. As we are able to get this up and running, that's going to take a little time, but depending on the volume, but we want that. And for those of you who are giving in this regard, thank you for being a part of the solution and not just griping about the problem. God bless you.